The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. Will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello, everybody. I hope you can see me because I'm not the most technical in regards to this, but it was the, whoa, hey, there we go. Back to you. I just threw up on that one. I apologize for that. I'm hoping you can all hear me and you can all see me. And Mr. Brian Cummings, I'm assuming from the technical side, you'll tell me if people can't see me or hear me on this. But welcome to the Prime My Body webinar with Dr. Shade, the legendary Dr. Shade, who has had tens of thousands of views of his video that we put up on Facebook. And he's been kind enough to come on tonight to address several questions that people have posted to Facebook. We actually had hundreds of questions. And in the interest of time, we obviously had to shorten those down to something that was manageable tonight. So we've done that. But Dr. Shade is going to spend several minutes addressing a lot of the questions. And let me start out with this just from the get-go. There were several questions in regards to, hey, I'm nursing, or I'm pregnant, or I have a child that has Asperger's, or I'm dealing with a family member with Alzheimer's or Crohn's disease or irritable bowel, or there were a lot of those questions and questions about the drug interactions. Here's the reality, guys. We don't really even touch those questions, and you might think that we're, wimping out on you, but we're not. I mean, legally, the FDA considers us a dietary supplement, and we are very careful to do everything by the letter of the law, not just the spirit, but the letter of the law. And the letter of the law says that we're a dietary supplement, which means we cannot treat, prevent, heal any known disease or illness, which means that if somebody is under a doctor's care, a physician's care, and is on medication, then they have to talk to the doctor. They have to share with them our hemp oil. And we try to put a lot of information out there about our hemp oil, and Dr. Shade's going to talk a lot about what our hemp oil does and how it interacts with the body. But we have to trust that the doc that you're working with is up to speed enough in regards to hemp oil to understand any interaction. We can't give you that advice, because any advice that we give you would be interpreted as giving you medical advice. And that would be, one, unethical, and one, it would go against what the FTC or the FDA says that we can give you, the information we can give you. So legally, we can't give you that. So we're not wimping out on that. We've gotten several questions about it. But if you're under physician's care, you have to share with your doc about what you want to do. And hopefully they're going to care enough about you as a patient to do their investigation. So we have to leave it at that. Obviously, you guys have heard me talk about Dr. Shade. You've seen him, you've heard him on calls, you've seen him at the event. He is by far setting the standard in hemp oil, and we're blessed to be working with him and taking this incredible oil all around the world. And he's going to spend a few minutes answering some questions. From a moderator standpoint, we'll have Austin Tice asking some questions of Dr. Shade. So we're going to go through about 10 or 12 questions, and Dr. Shade, as always, is going to give amazing detail. So guys, thank you for being on the call, taking time. We are recording this. It will be posted in your back office for viewing at a later date. So with that, let's not waste any time. Let's dive right in. Ladies and gentlemen, let me first introduce Dr. Shade, and then Austin's going to come on and start to ask a few questions. So Doc, thanks for being on the webinar with us tonight.
Always happy to be here, and always happy to talk to you, Paul.
I love it. Well, Austin,
we made our shirts match.
We did. That was totally coincidence, guys. I'm telling you. We didn't coordinate it. I don't know if Austin, have you made it on to the webinar yet, brother? If you haven't, I can dive in, or Brian, I don't know if you're adding him on to it or not. See if he's there.
He's not on yet, but shortly.
He's on. I see him on here now. Can we make him a presenter? All right, hang on. Hang on. Okay. Hang on.
I'm here, Paul. And
There
Dr.
you-
Shade, by the way.
All right, are you just on audio, brother?
I'm just on audio. I can certainly be on video if you'd like to.
Oh, well, I mean, good-looking young guy that you are. No, well, I'll let you just dive in, brother, and let you ask some questions, and I'll go off video so we get to all focus on Dr. Shea.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks for the introduction, Paul. Dr. Christopher Shea, it's great to be with you tonight. And thanks for connecting with all of I know there's hundreds and thousands of people all across the country. So you're officially, no pressure, on the Prime My Body hot seat. So you've handled it once before. I know you'll handle it really well tonight. So I'm going to give you a couple layups at the beginning to get things started. So I guess the first thing is, what does our enhanced formula do for our oil, and how does it make it more bioavailable?
Thank you for the layup there. That does help warm things up a little bit. But there's so much that goes into that question. When I read all these questions that come, and I'm looking at people searching for their understanding. Ours is 60, ours is 70, 80, it's 90%. Oh, then you just need crystalline CBD, it's pure CBD. And that's not what the game is about. The game is about how much gets absorbed. In functional medicine or in nutrition, they say there was originally you are what you eat. And then when we got into supplements and making supplements to supplement what you're not getting enough of in your diet, we realized that just putting something in a capsule and taking it into your GI tract doesn't guarantee that you absorb it. And in fact, some things like curcumin, you're getting a fraction of a percent, or EGCG from green tea, you're just getting a fraction of a percent in there. And so you are what you eat evolved to become you are what you absorb. And that brings you right into the realm of what we do in the world of liposomes and nanoemulsions. And what these are techniques for wrapping up lipids, or wrapping up lipids into little spheres. So lipids are fats, wrapping them up into tiny little spheres that are so small that they passively diffuse at a greater rate than an ordinary bulk oil that you take does. They passively diffuse through your mucous membranes into circulation at a great rate, thereby increasing bioavailability. Bioavailability is the fraction of something you ingest that gets into the body and is available to the body. So what we do is increase bioavailability. The nanoemulsification uses phosphatidylcholine and similar emulsifiers to break down the hemp oil into tiny little nano-sized droplets. And I'm sure we'll get into what the term nano means and why this is not a scary thing, and what kind of nanotechnology you should be worried about, what kinds you shouldn't. But we're breaking these oils into tiny, tiny little droplets that are so small, as soon as they go into your mouth, they're absorbing through the mucous membranes into the capillaries in your oral mucosa. And as you swallow them, they're going in very, very rapidly. And that is what we're bringing. It's not that we're the only people bringing CBD to you. We're bringing CBD to you in a form that is super bioavailable. And that's very important when compound you're using is so expensive as CBD is, and rapidly bioavailable. That gives you immediacy, an immediate increase in your blood levels that saturates through your body and starts the activity that you're looking for in a rapid, coherent, and very palpable way. So our nano-emulsified hemp oil is taking a very pure, cleanly sourced hemp oil and putting it into a format that whoosh, goes right in and bridges the gap between the slow, low bioavailability of a lot of the hemp products that you swallow and what would be in the cannabis world the immediacy of vaporizing or taking something in through the blood. So that's why we nano-emulsify.
So not only are you getting more of what it is you're getting, or of the oil, but it's also, you're getting into what I like to call it, the left-hand lane of the highway really quickly.
It's getting real quick, and that's important for a lot of reasons. Now, if we're having some situation where we really want that calming effect of the CBD, we want that immediacy. If we're feeling ourselves in that sympathetic fight or flight state and we want to get back to a grounded parasympathetic state, we'd like that immediacy. But the immediacy also brings us a very good spike in the blood levels of this compound. And when we look at the different things that CBD does for us, some are based on hitting receptors, cannabinoid receptors, or modulating cannabinoid receptors. And some of the effects are based on gene induction, bringing up anti-inflammatory, pro-detoxification, antioxidant genes. And bringing them up like that, there you are, is based on having an adequate level in the blood, and having it all absorbed that quickly gives you a big spike, and it hits those receptor sites and hits those gene sites. As I say, it rings the bell.
Well, I think everybody can appreciate a nice bell ringing, so especially when they're looking to come down a little bit. So you touched on it just a little bit, but it has so many things floating around on it. Can you talk a little bit about the safety of nanotechnology? And obviously you're a pioneer of it, and that helps, not only bring it to market, but specifically with hemp oil.
Yeah, unfortunately the word nano, which is just a prefix for a measure, like milli. Could you imagine, milli technology? Oh my God, it's milli technology. It's all gonna kill us. Or it's mega technology, or it's micro technology. No, but nobody says that. But when you say nanotechnology, oh my God, it's gonna kill us. So why? And why did this all happen? And why is it not a problem? And why is it a problem? So it's a problem in some places and it's not a problem in other places. And by places, I mean, what are we talking about with the nanotechnology? What are we bringing down to the nano size? Now, first, what is nano? So nano, I said there's a prefix. So we all know what a meter is. It's about 3 feet. And a millimeter is 1,000th of that. And a micrometer is 1,000th of a millimeter, or 1,000,000th of a meter. Then you go down further and you get to nano, a nanometer. A nanometer is a billionth of a meter. All right? That's all that means. It's a size range. And nanotechnology was a term coined by the nanotech industry, which was an industry that specialized in taking mineral particles down to very small sizes, these nano sizes. These are mostly mineral catalysts. These were things, there was cadmium sulfides, and there was silver oxides and titanium dioxides. And these are all particles that catalyze reactions on the surface. And when they brought them really small, they were better catalysts because they had very high surface area. So they determined that that range where they start getting really fast in their catalytic activity is below 100 nanometers. And they wanted to distinguish those particles from things that were, say, 600 nanometers. And so they said to be a nanoparticle and part of nanotechnology, you have to be less than 100 nanometers. Now, it's not like they really figured out that it happens at 99 and not at 101. They just said, boom, line in the sand is now 100 nanometers. And if you're below that, you're nanotech. Okay. Now, that was all from guys who weren't working with lipids. They weren't working with nutraceuticals. They weren't working with health at all. They were working with catalysts. And so they made that. And those little particles, like a titanium dioxide particle that's 10 or 20 nanometers, is potentially very damaging to you because they're absorbed very quickly. They get into the body, and the body doesn't really know what to do with them. It's like, what's this? It's a titanium dioxide nanoparticle. What do I do with it? How do I get it out of here? And it's catalyzing free radical reactions, and it has a potential for damage. All right, but that's that whole world. When you get into lipids, lipid particles in your body are all working in the nanotechnology range. That's right. You, Austin Tice, are guilty of being a nanoparticle generator. And unless any one of you out there has a really screwed up GI tract, every one of you is guilty of being a nanoparticle generator. Why do I say that? Because when you swallow lipids, if you drink some olive oil, it's going to go into your stomach. It's going to start breaking down. It's going to go join with bile, get into the small intestine, and you're going to start absorbing these little emulsified droplets of oil. Your bile is going to emulsify the oil into little droplets. They're going to go across the lumen, or across the walls of the GI tract, and in the area right inside your GI tract, you're going to combine those now triglycerides, those little pieces of oil, into a sphere, and you're going to wrap it in phosphatidylcholine. Phosphatidylcholine, that's the same thing that we're using to wrap around our hemp oil and make it so small. And you're going to wrap this phosphatidylcholine triglyceride mix, and it's going to be maybe 150 to 200 nanometers, and you're going to launch it into your body. It's going to go around your body, and your body is going to start pulling triglycerides out of it using little parts of the sphere. And it's going to lower in size down to about 70 nanometers. That's a nanoparticle, a lipid nanoparticle. Phosphatidylcholine on the outside, triglycerides on the inside, crunchy on the outside, chewy on the inside. And that's a nanoparticle. And that's how you deal with moving oils from your GI tract to your cells to break down and metabolize that oil into calories. And how do you deal with those oils? Those little particles, you have all these enzymes in you called phospholipases for breaking these particles apart and using all these triglycerides and using the phosphatidylcholine for metabolism. You're going to break them down into oils. The phosphatidylcholine you can use building the membranes. You can put it into your membranous organelles like the mitochondria, the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus. You can use it to make acetylcholine in the brain, because remember, these things are going to the brain. These little oil droplets are going to the brain, and you're metabolizing them there. You're taking them into the liver. You're using it for choline in the liver. Your body is made to traffic in lipid nanoparticles. That's what it does. What am I doing? I'm making them outside of your body. I'm using that same technology. Well, I'm using that same chemistry and putting it with some homogenization technology to make little droplets of hemp oil, which you absorb very rapidly. But the fact that they're less than 100 nanometers has a couple of effects on us. It makes them rapidly absorbable, so they're really fast uptake. So fast they'll go in right through the buccal mucosa into circulation, and they're a net total bioavailability that's very, very high. But it is not a worry. Just because they're underneath this number of 100 nanometers does not make them dangerous. And so if you hear Joe Mercola speaking on Mercola.com about lipid nanoparticles, no, he doesn't talk about lipid nanoparticles because he has no problem with lipid nanoparticles. I hand Joe my liposomes all the time because I'm dishing. But if he's talking about nanoparticles as a problem, he's talking about things like titanium dioxides, these mineral nanoparticles that can get lodged in you and can be a problem. With lipids, with nutraceuticals, it is not a problem. Did that cover that for you?
That covered it. By the way, I'm only going to turn my webcam on when I'm asking questions. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just staring, And so I think the focus should be on you answering your question. So it's not that I don't want to be here. I'm letting you have the floor. Here I am to ask another question. Exactly. So yes,
I might never stop.
Yeah, well, I'll pop up occasionally. No, it was a fantastic answer and much more thorough than I could have ever anticipated. So next question, kind of, keeping on the same track, is can you discuss the cleanliness of the oil? We get asked a lot about sourcing, non-GMO, good manufacturing practices, the extraction process, those types of things I feel like are important. People
Right. No, it's super important. And, you know, this whole industry of using hemp oils has been on a very, very rapid and very steep gradient of learning. And some of these early ones, geez, you know, we travel around Colorado looking at what people were doing. And, you know, some people had plastic buckets with ethanol and they're just like shaking it all around and then pouring it out. Yeah, we got a great product here for you. And it was a crude industry at best in the early days. And because there was really, to be frank, because there was so much money and so much potential in it, there was this massive influx of talent into the industry. And it was a chemical talent. And you had guys from pharmaceutical industries, you had hardcore organic chemists, you had the best of the nutraceutical industry all either showing up or being recruited in and starting to bring short path distillation in. Now there's simulated moving bed chromatography. There's the ethanol extractors and the CO2 extractors, but where they've gone from the initial crude extracts to where they are now is just so impressive. And to be a long-lasting player in the nutraceutical world, they had to get very, very clean. They had to pre-test materials coming in, make sure that there's not pesticides, herbicides, metals. They had to get their first extract either by an ethanol extraction or a CO2 extraction. And if you have these little nitpicky people, this is better, that's better, that's better, that's better. This is all people, you know, in a pissing match about what they think they know about first stage extractions, because that's all first stage extraction. Where does it go from there, though? Is it de-waxed? Has it gone through a secondary chromatographic step or a distillation step to get rid of some of these plant waxes, extraneous compounds that you don't need, to get rid of THC that's naturally present in these plants? If we want to be a long-term player in this industry, we have to step down THC. Early introductions into the CBD market, we're looking at ratios of 20 CBD to 1 THC. You know, if you're taking 200 milligrams of that for, you know, some issue that you need a lot for, you're getting a massive amount of THC. And there were people that argued that that's good. Now, we'll argue that with a couple of regulators and see what they think about that. To be a long-lasting player, we have to minimize that. So we need these advanced technologies that have fortunately come into the market. So the people that we obtain our oils from go through two-stage processes where they're first getting a crude extract and then they're purifying it more. And, you know, in the early days of this industry, crude extracts were made in Europe or in Asia, and they were brought into this country, and then they were purified here. And now both the growing, the extracting, well, all the growing, extracting, and purification is being done in the United States at a really high level. And these chromatographic techniques are giving us everything we want and getting rid of the things that are difficult from a regulatory point of view. And when you measure these, I mean, I remember some of the stuff I'm sitting on $10,000 worth of material in there, maybe it was more, that came from Europe, from an organic farm in Europe, and it was loaded with both antifungal fumigants and mold toxins. I mean, what am I ever going to do with that? It's just going to sit in there as a testament to how bad the market used to be. But now the material that we get is super clean. There's really high-end PhD chemists doing the extractions, people like me, people I can meet with, I can trust, we can speak the same language. Now we finally have that faith that all aspects of our chain really come together very cleanly.
So in regards to testing, not only is there testing being done as it hits the dock of the manufacturing facility, their Quicksilver, but once the final product's done as well, there's also testing done there as well too, right?
Yeah, well, their final product comes to us. We do testing on that. There's really long panels that we do to validate a source, and then shorter panels for the main nasties that are done with each incoming lot, and then we have to repeat that on the outgoing lots once they're all filled, once they're all finished. So we have a set of specifications for microbial, for pesticide, for mold toxins. Mold toxins, one of the things that you got to be really sensitive to in this kind of an industry, because they harvest lots of plants and they all sit together. And so there's that potential. And so everything's been beautifully clean. And there's just such an extensive suite of tests that we can have tons of confidence in what we're getting now. And that's a really big deal in this industry.
One of the questions we just got live is, and it has a little bit to do with what we're talking about with sourcing, and then of course in our batches being smaller, sometimes the consistency of the oil and even the taste vary. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean,
it's just kind of being
that's
a
the issue.
thing.
It's funny. This industry is sort of colliding with the old tobacco industry. Maybe it's just because I meet a lot of tobacco guys who are in this industry, not because I don't have any work anymore. But they talk about what they used to do. Actually, not even just in tobacco, but in a couple different industries, how they would harvest across many years, and they would find exactly the right temperature control to store multiple years harvests, so they could always be batching together multiple years to wash out the differences harvest to harvest that come in flavor and components. This is a reality of the natural foods and the natural medicines world, is that batch to batch things are different. We don't have one massive farm stretching across, a third of Kentucky giving us stuff, and then we're storing it for 4 years and blending 4 years worth of stuff so that your Marlboros taste exactly the same every year. Orange juice guys do that too. They freeze it all up and then they mix it over years so that you don't taste that difference in Tropicana. But we are not immune for those differences because we're still small batch. We're still, dealing with what comes to us, and it's coming from different farms, and it's having slightly different ratios of terpenes in there. And then even the oils that we use as part of the flavoring and emulsification, they're having variations that are coming in. And we're varying our sourcing. We're looking in the citrus oils for the very best sourcing, because that's actually the major source of the terpenes. And so as we go through sourcing, we're looking for the best values of the terpenes that we value the most, the best contents of those. And so we have to deal with some of these variations in taste and variations in consistency. And the consistency variations are coming mostly from differences in the wax contents in here. If you were to use, a pure isolated CBD, there would be no variation in the consistency. But because we use an extracted oil with natural components in it, those natural components affect the consistency. And we're always tweaking a little bit to dial that in and get it as stable as it can get. You'll see that there's really no other product, really there is no product even close to this on the market that reveals so much about the ingredients that are in it. You'll see some of the products out there that claim they're a liposome or they're an emulsion. Pour them out, get a nice tall thin glass, like a tall thin shot glass, and let them sit in there and watch the layers separate. If you're near a science lab, put them in a centrifuge tube, watch them break into multiple different layers. Nobody has a perfect emulsion like we do that batch to batch is showing you so much about the products that are in there, allowing you to taste what the oils are telling you, allowing you to taste what the terpenes in the flavor oils are telling you. That's why you're exposed to seeing these differences. When it's just a big gamish covered by really heavy synthetic flavorings, you're not going to notice that. But we can't do that. So you're going to be exposed to some of this variation.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a centrifuge here in my office, but after hanging out with you long enough, I'm thinking it might be a good investment. It actually is pretty cool to see some of the different oils that talk a big game, what it actually looks like when they're spun around at a high speed for a minute. It's mind-boggling to see the separation that takes place. It really is.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, a lot of these, they're what are called mixtures. So if you're really a true nanoemulsion or really a true liposome, and a liposome is a slightly different term, similar to a nanoemulsion, but it's for water-based things. If it's really true, it'll look like an oil. You'll look at it and it'll look like a cooking oil. It'll be like, is that olive oil? Is that sunflower seed oil? Have a similar consistency to it. And when you put it in a centrifuge, it comes out and it still looks like an oil. There's nothing that goes to the top. There's nothing that goes to the bottom, because what it is these tiny little droplets of oil suspended in the water, and they're so small and they're so well suspended that what's called Brownian movement, their natural vibration in the fabric of time-space, and that's not even exaggerated. They're just vibrating, and that power is stronger than the gravity, as long as they're perfectly stable, so they don't break. A bad emulsion, a really crude emulsion, or one that isn't even really an emulsion, and you'll see the ones that have xanthan gum in them are always false emulsions, and xanthan gum is a thickener designed to prevent the separation of the oil and water. Like you look at, my favorite xanthan gum example is sriracha hot sauce. You can have sriracha in your refrigerator for like 10 years and it never separates into like chili powder and liquid. It's just always that sriracha stuff. But everything else is separating, and it's got all this xanthan gum, and it's making it so thick that gravity's not able to separate those. But then you put it in a centrifuge, and that gives you, 5, 10, 20 times gravity, and they're pulled apart, and you see the different layers. I wish I had one here. In the centrifuge, you'll see a layer of the heaviest gum, the thinner gum, and then a black layer of hemp oil on the top. And all it was like throwing it all in a blender. It was a smoothie, and you're paying a lot of money for your hemp oil smoothie. But you were here. The tragedy in Houston had you parked here for a week, and you got to see all this stuff quite often.
Yeah, almost daily. In fact, even when you weren't around, I was fumbling through all of it. I was waiting for you. I was like, I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission at this point. So I've got a lab coat on, and it says Dr. Shane on it, and I just had carte blanche throughout everywhere. Of all the things I thought that would not be mentioned on the call tonight, I wonder what the odds that sriracha was going to be used as an analogy. I still had those before the call started. So we'll move on to the next question. So on the back of our label here, you see the word phytocannabinoid diols. Can you talk a little bit about that and what those are?
Yeah, so phytocannabinoid diols are a group or a subset of the cannabinoids in cannabis sativa. One of the questions, let's just get out another question. One of the questions that comes up all the time, so what's the difference between marijuana and hemp? It is a functional definition. Functional definition means there's something, or in science we call it a conditional definition. There's something you can measure in there that at a certain level it's this, and a certain level it's that. And so the cannabis sativa plant can be marijuana or it can be hemp. If it's measured, if it's harvested and the THC in a mature plant, the THC concentration is below 0.3%, it is hemp. If it is above 0.3%, it's marijuana. Okay, so same plant, bred differently over years. Hemp has been bred for fiber, for protein, for oil, and marijuana was bred for, well, you know what marijuana was bred for. It was bred for THC. So same plant, lots of cannabinoids, one's bred not to have the psychoactive cannabinoid THC so that people can grow it industrially. Now, what that ended up doing is selecting the plant out to have different cannabinoids, and CBD was the main one that we're looking for. So a diol versus an ol. OL, the postfix, the ending OL means that there is an OH group on it. THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, has one OH on it. CBN, cannabinol, has one OH on it. Cannabidiol has two OHs. And cannabigerol, even though it doesn't say cannabidiol, is a diol. It has two OHs on it. Now, CBD also has a homolog, meaning it's almost the same, but a little bit different. The carbon chain's a little bit different. It's called CBDV. I don't know, what is it called? Cannabidivarin. CBDV. That is also a diol. So the cannabidivarin, the cannabidiol, and the cannabigerol are all diols in the class of phytocannabinoids. So we're trying to distinguish which of the cannabinoids we're using, or we're getting plants that have expressions of these. And all of these diols have very beneficial effects on your body. And so when we make the product, we normalize the concentration by the level of the diols. And that's so the phytocannabinoid diols are the sum of CBD, CBDV, and CBG. Now, CBD is the main one in there. It's 90 or 95% or more of the whole cannabidiol mix. And why don't we call it CBD? Because CBD is being used in its pure synthetic form as a drug. And we are using a plant extract rich in phytocannabinoid diols as a dietary supplement. So we don't say CBD so as not to confuse it with the drug that's being tested that is a pure synthetic cannabidiol.
Amazing explanation. Had I had a professor in college that made science and chemistry as fun and simple as you make it, I might have done better than having expectations. Just kidding. Like, that's the kind of class I needed, pass or fail. That's it. I wasn't looking for an A, B, or C, D grade.
Chemistry selected for boring people for like decades. It became the most boring. I think it's the most fascinating subject, but they just selected for people who could make it as fundamentally boring as possible.
Well, one of the this next question, you've kind of, we've kind of been around it and in it all call, but I think it's worth just sort of driving it home. There are a lot of different companies out there that sell hemp oil. Can you just sort of summarize what, again, separates us from those guys?
There's a lot of places you can just get the basic hemp oil, but do you absorb it? How fast do you absorb it? How well do you absorb it? You're paying a lot of money for hemp oil and you're getting like a 10% absorption, and it takes hours and hours to get that. Like, molecule at a time as it runs through your digestive tract, it's slowly coming into the blood. Whereas we are bringing that into a format, using the pattern of nature to create small absorbable droplets of oil. Like I said, you do this. You take your dietary oils and you put them into phospholipid nanoparticles so you can take them into your body. We're doing it more efficiently than your body does so that you can absorb it rapidly and get a high bioavailability and a fast pulse of it into the body. That's what we're doing. That's what other people are not doing. It's funny, I'm going to turn that up there. You see that picture above my head? That's an alchemical print, and that's a picture of the alchemist talking to Mother Nature about what he's doing. And the fundamental principle of alchemy was to take basic nature and try to elevate it to an even higher, better use for us. Now, you look at her folding her arms and looking at him disapprovingly because she thinks he's not doing a very good job. But I think I'm doing a better job than he is, and hopefully nature will smile on me. But we are taking hemp oil, which is already great, and making it way better, patterning it on the way nature does it.
I love it. I appreciate that explanation and summary. I definitely wanted to drive that point home because it's something that we get asked a lot, you know, what makes you guys different? And of course, the easiest answer is just bioavailability. And one of the things that I've learned from you that makes so much sense is, of course, your entire life, we've been told you are what you eat, but as you so eloquently stated, you're actually what you absorb. And so that's something that is pretty easy, I think, for everybody can remember. Kind of staying on the same wavelength of thought, you know, there's a lot of companies now beginning to talk about the effects of essential oils on the endocannabinoid system. In fact, many of them are saying that oils are more effective than hemp, specifically oils that contain beta-carotene. So if you don't mind, would you mind diving in and addressing this?
Oils are better than hemp at being hemp. Did you just say that? Did you really stand on the stage and say that?
There are people starting those rumors. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, this one could go on for a while. There are
I better close the camera.
But the funny part is, these oils are better at hemp than being hemp. You know, the reason it's a cannabinoid receptor is because it responds to cannabinoids. And to say that cannabinoids don't hit cannabinoid receptors is kind of silly. Now, what's at stake here is beta-carotene. And I'm a big fan of beta-carotene. I just don't like overstating things just because you want to push down Prime My Body and you want to push down CBD and say, CBD isn't CBD, only beta-carotene is CBD. Beta-carotene is a terpene. It is one of the various natural essential oils in cannabis plants, in multiple different food plants and medicinal plants. It's very high in black pepper, in cloves, in yang yang or lang lang or however that's spelled. It's in Melissa specialis. And it is a great, great terpene because it does hit the cannabinoid receptors. There's a lot of things that are cannabinoid agonists. Now, we know THC as a cannabinoid receptor agonist. I'm sorry, side note, what does that mean? We all know antagonists. Now, I can antagonize you just like people are antagonizing me. We know that. But what if I agonized you? Oh, come on. That's agonizing. So when we're nice to each other, we're agonizing. So that's the funny thing that we took antagonist into our language, but not agonist. So an antagonist fights against something and an agonist encourages something. So if you're a receptor, like a cannabinoid receptor, an agonist is something that sticks to the receptor and turns the lock so that it signals the body to do what that receptor signals for. And so for cannabinoid receptors, especially the CB2 receptor, that's signaling for anti-inflammatory or inflammation control in the immune system. It's just one of the things that we really like about cannabinoids. And we all know THC because it's such a seriously potent agonist. Seriously potent means a little bit has a whammo effect. And THC hits the CB1 receptor mostly, and unless it's in the presence of CBD. So THC first goes after the CB1, and we all know what that does. Boom, it gets you high. But when the CBD is there, the CBD is changing or modulating the CB2 receptor so that the THC is more likely to go and hit that receptor. So CBD, one of its beauties is how it modulates and sort of sets up the tone of the CB2 receptor so it's more likely to be activated. Now, what activates it? Yeah, THC activates it. all of your endocannabinoids activated, anandamide, 2-arachidonoglycerol, and then all of there's like a dopamine conjugate of it, there's a glycerol conjugate of it, but anandamide and 2-AG are the main ones. So what does CBD do? It's getting the CB2 receptor ready to be induced. It's increasing the formation of 2-arachidonoglycerol. It's decreasing the breakdown of anandamide. So it's pooling up those endocannabinoids and setting up the receptors so they act on it. Great. Now, are there other things that we can use to activate our cannabinoid receptors? Well, there's a lot of natural medicines that do that, just nowhere near as strong as THC, and most of them not as strong as our endocannabinoids. So EGCG from green tea is good, but it's about 100 times weaker or more than THC. Diindolylmethane, methane, which I use a lot and I've found has a really profound effect on neuroinflammation, also is an agonist, especially for the CB2 receptor. And then beta-caryophyllene is an agonist for the CB2 receptor, almost as strong as anandamide and 2-arachidonoglycerol. Wow, that's really cool. So we have, in our formula, we have CBD setting the stage of the CB2 receptor, getting it ready to be activated, and then we have something to activate it. And that could be our endocannabinoids, or it could be some exogenous substance like the beta-caryophyllene. Boy, wouldn't it be good if there was beta-caryophyllene in the CBD hemp oil? Let's say before we get to beta-caryophyllene in the product already, let's talk about what else CBD does. So, I was reading some of this rambling spiel this rambling spiel from doTERRA, and this is coming second, through somebody else. So maybe he didn't say it all like this. They're acting like CBD does nothing for you because it doesn't ring those receptors really well. Well, I said already, it sets it up and increases your endocannabinoid tone. But for the neuroinflammation, which is something we love so much about CBD, it is directly an NRF2 upregulator, meaning it's upregulating all the glutathione genes. And these are antioxidant, chemoprotection, anti-inflammatory genes. It's down-regulating the CCL genes, which are pro-inflammatory genes, especially these are genes invoked when you have endotoxin, which is coming from leaky gut or from infections and causing a runaway inflammatory response. So CBD downs inflammation, turns up anti-inflammation and chemoprotective effects, modulates the CB2 receptor, increases endocannabinoid tone. And guess what? Beta-caryophyllene, which doTERRA is hanging all their hats on, is present naturally in the citrus oils that we use. And guess what? We screen citrus oils we use for a very healthy beta-caryophyllene content so that we get that effect. We knew that already.
Well, Dr. Shade, I appreciate you. I mean, that was going to be mostly layups for you, and I wanted to allow to kind of wrap up the call with another beach ball with tea that you could knock out of the yard. And I appreciate you going into level of detail you did, and also keeping it and deliver it in a way that's easy to understand. And every call we do, and even every conversation we have, I walk away with a little bit more in my arsenal to better talk about this. One of the things that we'll wrap up on is, and this is a question we actually got during the call.
Hey Austin.
Yeah.
I just wanted to check and see what Dr. Shade really felt. I mean, because okay, no, I'll hand it back to you now.
What do you really think? You know how many times I've heard that?
Okay, yeah, back to you. I'm going to you.
That's not the first time Paul or I have asked Dr. Shade. So tell us how you really feel. Anyways, we do get asked a lot, is it uncommon for someone to, on occasion, feel when they're first getting started on the oil, some detox symptoms, either in their body and or mind?
Oh no, not at all. And this is, you know, I run a company that's really fundamentally rooted in detoxification. It's one of the things I believe so deeply in. We are so altered. We're so hindered by the toxic load that we have in us, and the toxic load is locked into us by being in a sympathetic autonomic nervous system state. That fight or flight state tells your body it has to get out of a situation to survive, and it doesn't do secondary processes like detoxification. So there's two ways that hemp oils contribute to detoxification. One is their direct NRF2 upregulation, their ability to affect the glutathione system, which is the core driver in detoxification. So yeah, they can do those. They can do that very well. But one of the biggest ways that initial detoxification is happening is by shifting your body over very rapidly into a parasympathetic autonomic nervous system state. And if you've just been locked up like this for a long time, as soon as you go parasympathetic, your body says, oh my God, I got so much work to do to get rid of the trash. And in fact, the enzymes and proteins and antioxidants that I talk about in detoxification, when we're aiming at turning up all the reactions of detoxification, 10, 20 years ago, maybe 20, 30 years ago, they all used to be called house cleaning proteins. And now we understand them as chemoprotective proteins. So these are set to the side when you're in a sympathetic fight or flight state. And when you go parasympathetic, you suddenly look around and you're like, my God, my house is in disarray. I got to clean a lot of this trash up. And cleaning the trash up, unless everything's lined up really well, can come with some negative effects. And so if you're having those and you want to ameliorate them, you want to turn those down, you want to make sure that your liver is moving, meaning that you're moving bile. And for that, bitter herbs are really good for that. You can go to a health food store and ask them for a bitters formula like Swedish bitters, or even cocktail bitters like Angostura do that, or extracts of gentian or myrrh. And that'll help move that. And you can always take charcoal capsules to calm down all that or bind up all that stuff moving into the GI tract. And so that'll help you with those initial detoxes. So it is not unusual at all. It definitely can happen.
Yeah, and, you know, I'm sort of walking, talking, living proof. You know, sometimes it takes a step or two back to 5, 10, 20, or 100 forward. So
I had you deep in it.
Yeah, we did. We did. We were, and I think we'll forever always be as long as we're working with you. So, and it's cool here. It's cool hearing you talk about that because, you know, the whole brand, you know, the theme behind Prime My Body's been helping to remind people of who it is they're capable of becoming. You know, stepping into their God-given potential, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so much of that falls into alignment with everything you're saying, and more specifically with what the hemp oil is doing. And so it's been awesome to hear the ins and outs of the answers to these questions reiterate that in so many ways.
Absolutely.
So we'll go to the next question. Can you talk a little bit about the Quicksilver Prime My Body relationship partnership? And one of the questions that we get asked on occasion is, of course, Quicksilver sells a Colorado hemp oil, and then of course you manufacture and create for us an exclusive hemp oil that we distribute exclusively through Prime My Body. Can you talk about the differences in those two oils?
Yeah, I mean, it really is just coming down to a potency thing. And, you know, unfortunately, people aren't really good at math in this world. You know, you put us up in the global math tournaments and we come in like 489th in the world, you know, somewhere behind Leftonistan. We're pretty stupid with math. And so calculating a milligram per, you know, a dollar per milligram thing is kind of lost on us sometimes. And if you were to do that and you look at your $120 bottles of hemp oil, not the $149, pay this once to get in, but what people are paying day to day, you're getting a slightly cheaper price per milligram of hemp oil than the Colorado hemp oil. You're talking about, I forget what it is, $119 versus $95. And that's $119 for a 16 milligram per dose amount versus $95 for a 12 milligram per dose amount. So there's this 33% increase in the dose and a commensurate increase in price that makes the Prime My Body a little bit cheaper. But one of the things that we like in a more potent product is the efficiency of absorption. Absorption is based on surface area, especially absorption of these emulsified, pre-emulsified products. That's what we said. They absorb in the mouth, they absorb going down through the stomach, into the small intestine, but there is a limited surface area to absorb it. So if we could use less volume to get the same milligram amount, we actually have a better absorption based on that surface area there. So, you know, dollar per dollar, it's a little bit cheaper to be buying the Prime My Body, but that increase in absorption, the surface area to volume ratio benefit that you get from it is a big deal. So 3 pumps of Prime My Body does the same as 4 pumps of the Colorado hemp oil, but you have less volume, more surface area, better absorption.
Awesome. I appreciate the answer. So worth noting that while we have a lot of hundreds of thousands of customers using the oil, a lot of our affiliates, of course, have the opportunity to order the oil through some different packages we put together, and the actual price per bottle gets down to almost $100 per bottle. So it ends up being much cheaper whenever you're ordering in bulk. So that's something that I think is worthy of note. And so Dr. Shade, you're officially off the hot seat, man. The only thing that I've got waiting for you is a hug whenever I see you in Boulder. By the way, if you want to catch Dr. Shade live and in person, there's going to be an event in Boulder, Colorado. That'll be emailed everyone in our company and also blasted out through social media. That'll be on Thursday, September 21st. You'll have a chance to hear from Dr. Shade, shake his hand, meet him. Of course, our CEO, Paul Rogers, and our lead marketer at JT, Mr. John Taylor. So, Dr. Shade, it was good to connect with you tonight as always. And I'll hand it back to both yourself and our CEO, Paul Rogers.
Thanks so much, Austin.
See you.
Austin, great job. Dr. Shade, you're amazing as always, man. You're a rock star. You're going to have to go get like a serious tan and start wearing sunglasses now. You know, yeah. You're
I got the ones with the little dots on them.
Oh, heck yeah. A little bling. Absolutely. Bling, very much. Man, I appreciate your time tonight. Everybody got so much from it. We'll do this again. There's more questions out there. The question board has been lighting up tonight. So thank you. We'll let you go back to your family. I appreciate all that you do and look forward to taking it all around the world. So we'll let you close with any closing thoughts you might have tonight.
No, I thought we covered things really, really nicely tonight. Those are some really important things that, I've iterated through trying to explain them to people. And I think, we're getting down to the essence of what these answers are all about. It's about absorption, and we're patterning our absorption on the way that nature gets oils into you. This isn't some crazy nanotech that's coming to get you. It's not crazy chemicals that are coming to get you. All that kind of, that fear and that fear mongering that's spread on the internet, you really got to stay away from that. You got to be careful of that. Though the internet is great for all the information. In functional medicine, we say Dr. Google is the biggest danger to us all. So, listen to these responses. This is real true science for you, trying to be as understandable as possible. You have a fantastic product, patterned on the way nature did it.
No, I love it. I always said you're one of the smartest people I know. One of the things I love the most about you is that when you explain it, you don't make people feel stupid, which is a real sign of a high level of intelligence. So thank you so much, Doc. I appreciate your time. I know everybody else does as well. Go have a wonderful evening. Thanks, man.
All right, my family's here. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, I'm not sure if we stopped it. I stopped the recording. Stop the recording. Okay, good. Yeah, I was trying to close it. All right. So go ahead and click in webinar. Do I click in webinar? That signal, so I'm closing it.